Hello folks, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In this video, we will be discussing a current affair compilation of polity for the month of November. Okay, this video is entirely targeted at your prelims preparation for your 2025. Now, in this video, I will be more of dealing with the topics in current affair format or your MCQs format, so it will be useful for you to get more content at the same point of time. See what are the possible expected questions from the topic. All right, let's get the video started. This video is presented to you by your faculty Sushma KP. In this video, we will be dealing with the topics of socialist and secular topics in your preamble, property rights in India, internal democracy in political parties, USA presidential election, municipal corporations in India, NGOs, and at last we will be dealing with governance and AI. All of these topics we will be discussing strictly from your prelims perspective. Okay, before that we have an announcement from Legacy IAS Academy, wherein the series like we are doing right now, the current affair compilation is present for all the subjects. Do check that out if you are targeting your prelims UPSC 2025. At the same point of time, if you want to learn mains answer writing, content writing for your answer, etc., we have Impact 2025 program, which is curated specifically from your mains perspective. The link for both these is available in the description box below. Do check that out. All right, now coming back to the topic. The first thing is your property rights in India. As usual, I will tell it you like a story, you listen to it like a story. See, first and foremost, when we speak about India, okay, few things I want you to understand is India, under your British colonialism, we faced a lot of issues with zamindari system, your land tenancy, land reforms, etc. So your first elections manifesto, that is, they will tell, na, if we come into power, this is what we'll do. Congress at that point of time had strictly told, we will abolish zamindari rights. We will also bring in land reforms, and we will make sure we will implement your land tenancy, land ceiling limits, etc. All of those. So culmination, we will call it as land reforms. So if you see, they told that will be the main thing that they will do once they come into power. Yes, they were elected, they came into power. Now, what happened was, if you see our fundamental rights, see, one of the constant criticism that you observe of our Indian constitution is it is told that it is a lawyer's paradise. It is written too worded and it is too much of your legal things are there. And because majority of the people were your lawyers, that is your nationalists at that point of time, we can agree to that for one instance, but another thing, you cannot tell that yes, this was made only from your lawyer's perspective, understanding. So now what happened was, our fundamental rights had one concept: a right to property. This was a part of your fundamental right. Now, how will you abolish zamindari system? How will you effectively implement land reforms when it is a part of your fundamental rights? You cannot do that. Now, the question that started was, how will we implement land reforms at the same point of time make sure fundamental right is not violated? That is when they created this concept of ninth schedule to effectively implement land reforms and keep the judiciary out of it, that is your judicial review out of it. They introduced land ninth schedule, and under that they put land reforms. But eventually we know what happened with your land reforms or your abolition of zamindari. There were a lot of legal loopholes which people exploited very well, and land reforms could not be effectively implemented. Later onwards, in your 44th constitutional amendment, what happened was they removed a right to property, Article 31, from fundamental right. That is, Article 31 was removed from fundamental right, and rather it was given as a legal status. From henceforward, that is 44th Amendment onwards, your Article 31 was removed from fundamental right and rather it was just given as a mere legal right. What happened to your ninth schedule post your IR Coelho case? Your judiciary held that, see, we will do the Holy Trinity test. If a particular law is violating all three of it, then we have to take a stance, and you cannot have something called as a blanket immunity for laws coming under ninth schedule. So to keep that also in order and to make sure that land reforms also is effectively implemented, they abolished this fundamental right. They brought in your Article 31 to be removed and instead put Article 300A, just giving a legal status, which means now state can acquire public property. Now people cannot go running to the court telling that. Now again, this doesn't mean that people have no legal remedy. They have, but it is not a fundamental right. That's it. So this gave the state a free hand or upper hand in making sure of effective land reform utilization. Up until now, story is fine, right? Now, what happened in your Dr. Balram Singh versus Union of India case was your judiciary held that, see, state has the power to acquire property, but at the same point of time it has to be in a mindful, or it should be in a manner that state has to take, let's say for example proper compensation has to be given, and it should not be of arbitrary nature. Yes, state has the power to acquire property, doesn't mean it will go on arbitrarily acquiring. You have to still give effect to the fact that your people can be sure, that is the public trust should not be violated or corroded. If you're going to acquire a public property, if you're going to take someone's private property for that matter, let's say if it is only for community development, if there is no other choice, there are certain particular rules you have to follow, then and only then people will have a belief in the government or government bodies or government institutions. The trust in the government should not be gone. Understanding, that was one important thing. Now, why did I tell about right to property? Just keep it in the back of your mind, the story. We will come to your 42nd amendment now. 42nd amendment pe they added two words, your socialist, secular, integrity, unity, all of these words were added. This brought in the question whether your preamble can be amended or not, whether preamble is a part of basic structure or not. In your Berubari Union case, Supreme Court held that preamble is not a part of your basic structure, that is not amendable and all. But post your Keshwanand Bharti case, your Supreme Court held that preamble can be amended. It is a part of your basic structure and very much integral. And in your LIC of India case also, your Supreme Court reiterated the same thing, and from henceforth we have held on to the same thing. Okay, look at this. Now, few questions from this part. The 42nd Amendment of the Indian Constitution added which of the following words to the preamble? Democratic and federal, socialist and secular, sovereign and republican, justice and liberty. The 42nd Amendment added the words socialist and secular, meaning we are a welfare state with mixed economy and we are neutral with regard to your religion. And if at all, if any aspects are there, that is more of positive aspects towards the religion, which means we will uphold and treat all the religions equally. The addition of the words socialist and secular to the preamble by the 42nd Amendment reflects India's commitment to achieving social and economic equality, upholding religious neutrality, both A and B, neither A or nor B. Correct answer is both A and B. The 42nd Amendment is often associated with which of the following? The Emergency, Janata Party, Congress Party, Bharatiya Janata Party. The correct answer is the Emergency, because 42nd Amendment was considered as a mini constitution. That many changes were done to it. Now come back to the story that I told you in the very beginning of this. Property rights in India. We just saw previously about your amendment, preamble, etc. Right? And that I used one word called as socialist. Socialist here we mean to tell that, see, that was brought in part of your 42nd Amendment, which means we are trying to promote welfare to the society. You want to promote welfare to the society, meaning you will make sure there will be no concentration of wealth, there will be no concentration to the means of production. You will also make sure that is distribution of resources, wealth, etc. to the general public also. At the same point of time, you will also follow the mixed economy model, meaning what? Private enterprises will also exist, state enterprises will also exist. Okay. Under this, now all the story that I told with regard to your property rights, etc. Property Owners Association versus State of Maharashtra. And also look at few other cases. State of Karnataka versus Rangnath Reddy. Sanjeev Coke Manufacturing Company versus Bharat Cooking Coal Limited. In many of these cases, what your high courts and your Supreme Courts have reiterated is, yes, state can acquire property for the betterment of a community, for the betterment of the people. But at the same point of time, it should not be arbitrary, not to an extent that people feel that any point of time state can take away my property. If that is there, then your private property will cease to exist. Right to property is still a legal right, which still enjoys legal protection. It is not just a fundamental right, that's it. Under your Article 19(1) of F, which also spoke about your right to property, or Article 31 that also spoke of your property was removed from your 44th Amendment. Then Article 14 and 19, both of them, when you say right to equality, and Article 19 is right to speech and expression, also had remnants of your right to property. Now, when I said your 44th Amendment, for the whole purpose it removed your Article 31 from your fundamental right, was to ensure that it can effectively implement our land reforms, meaning it brought in a question. Article 39B and 39C versus Article 14 and 19. There is a common synonym that you will see in one of your Supreme Court verdicts. When Article 31C comes in, your Article 14 goes out, which means something betterment for the individuals such as your women, children, marginalized community, etc. You cannot expect Article 14 right to equality to be overpowering this. At the same point of time, the state wanted to implement 39B and 39C effectively as a part of your land reforms. What is 39B and 39C? The economic system shall be executed in such a way that the concentration of wealth and means of production shall not result in a common detriment. Equal pay for equal work shall be promoted. So basically, here DPSPs were having a more power, which means the state was trying to implement your DPSP. You all know, compared to your fundamental right and DPSP, your fundamental rights are justiciable, they have legal remedy, they are enforceable. DPSP is not. But whereas your 39B, 39C, your 31C, all of this, 31C is a fundamental right. But again, what we're trying to tell is, you give effect for development, you give the effect for progress. The whole point of DPSP is what? So that the state can effectively deliver it to the citizens at the time when it is possible for them. So from the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978, your right to property was removed as a fundamental right. Look at this. Your scope of Article 39B was increased to material resource of the community versus private property. Does not grant legislative power to the state to acquire private property. Again, the same story what we spoke about. Okay. Criteria for a classification. Let's say you want to purchase a land, the state wants to purchase a land, then it has to look at the nature, the scarcity. If there is no land in that place at all, then only it has to purchase this private property. Arbitrarily it can't just go and take away the land. Impact on community welfare, concentration in private hands. So it's still, just because state can acquire doesn't mean it should go and acquire. It also has to see the criterias. Okay. They again brought in the validity of 31C, like we discussed. Then your public trust doctrine, which means only when the state follows a particular order, rule of law, then only people can trust in the institution, as trust in the public officials will increase, which in turn will increase your public trust. Understanding? Doctrine of eminent domain. Okay. Government can acquire private property for public use, but what is the elements of doctrine of eminent domain? First and foremost, it should be only for public use. The person should be justly compensated, and the due process should be followed. And the only person who can do this should be coming from a government authority only, No other person. Recently, you would have seen multiple scams, people being associated who are politicians. Again, here, that is what they are trying to avoid. What is your public trust doctrine? In Majra Singh versus Indian Oil Corporation, where state as a trustee entity, and Godavaram versus Union of India case also, they have held that property should be handled as a fine balance between your public and private, which means private property should also be, the whole point they said about your public trust doctrine was that your private property or private people holding the property also should be having that. Yes, it is not a fundamental right, we are aware of that, but at the same time they should have a sense of trust that yes, my hard work plan, my hard work piece, my hard work or my asset is not just arbitrarily taken away from me. Yes, let's look at some of the questions. Right to property was removed from the list of fundamental rights by 42nd amendment, 44th amendment, 25th amendment, 24th amendment. Correct answer is 44th amendment. The right to property was originally included in the Constitution as fundamental right, constitutional right, statutory right, human right. It was fundamental right. The 44th Amendment, which removed the right to property from the list of fundamental right, was enacted in response to Supreme Court's judgment in Golaknath case, Supreme Court judgment in Keshwanand Bharti case, government desire to implement land reforms, pressure from opposition parties. Like we kept on increasing, discussing from the starting, is government desire to implement land reforms. Article 300A of Indian Constitution deals with, we discussed this also, right to equality, right to freedom, right to property, right to life. Correct answer is right to property. The right to property as guaranteed by the Indian Constitution is absolute and unconditional, subject to reasonable restrictions, available only to citizens, available only to residents. Correct answer is subject to reasonable restrictions. The next topic that we will be looking into is internal democracy in political parties. What is this internal party democracy? We all know about democracy as a whole for the country: free and fair elections, right to contest elections, at the same point of time to make sure that the right candidate will be elected. And free and fair elections, when we tell and right candidate, we have to tell if you follow the right proper way, that is, your election commission of India has put in your moral code of conduct to make sure if free and fair elections are to be conducted, then certain guidelines have to be followed. This is there only for the elections are general with regard to the state and citizens. But whereas within a party itself, do we need internal democracy? And if so, why? If you see, the answer is yes, we do need internal party democracy. First and foremost, if you see, people now elected, 40% of them have some of the other criminal cases against them. And if internal party democracy is brought in, first and foremost, you can make sure that the youth gets a shot at participation. Second, also one main thing that we have seen, like the first case we discussed, the criminalization of elections will decrease. The people's trust in the government, government officials, government institutions will increase. If that increases, then their legibility also increases, their accountability also increases. There is free and fairness. Yes, accountability and transparency makes it very important. For example, your RTI had bought initially your national parties under its ambit. One of the major steps to strengthen your RTI, that is your right to information, is people should get the right. Now you say yes, right to vote is my political right, is my fundamental right. Similar way, you are exercising such a fundamental right. You also have a choice to learn the information. What kind of candidates are you getting? Now this will strengthen your RTI even more, but eventually it was removed from your ambit of RTA. That's a separate topic. Now, what is the need for internal party democracy? First is your decentralization, so that it will not be just the top-down approach, but also by a bottom-up approach. Issues can be addressed more in the local levels. Prevents criminalization, like I told, 40% of them have criminal records. Representation will increase. Youth participation will increase. It will reduce corruption, bring in transparency, free flow of information. Like I said, you have to bring it under the ambit of your RTI. No electoral reforms can be effective without reforms in political party system. This is its your national commission to which will review the constitution. In his report titled Electoral Process and Political Parties, see, constantly we try to bring changes, model code of conduct, RTI, citizen charter, everything we try to bring in. One common theme in everything we see is corruption. Unless and until you bring changes in the political party ambit itself, you cannot expect much from your outside influences alone. Let's look at some of the questions. Internal democracy in political parties implies that party leaders are elected through a democratic process. Party members have a say in policy making decisions. Party funds are transparent and accountable. All of the above. This is just the gist of what we have explained right now. I want you to drop the answer for this question in the comment section below. It's pretty straightforward. Which of the following is a characteristic of internal democracy in political parties? Centralized decision making, limited membership participation, transparent election processes, authoritarian leadership. Correct answer is transparent election processes. Internal democracy in political party is essential for ensuring party discipline, promoting accountability and transparency, enhancing parties' electoral prospects, concentrating power in parties' leaders. Correct answer is promoting accountability and transparency. Which of the following institutions can play a crucial role in promoting internal democracy in political parties? Election Commission of India, Central Vigilance Commission, Lok Sabha, NHRC. Correct answer is your Election Commission of India. Next topic that we will be discussing is your US presidential elections. Okay, here we will be comparing your US presidential elections. Here we'll be comparing your US presidential election with your India presidential election. See, India ka presidential election and US ka presidential election is massively very different. First of all, the concept of president here and there is very, very different. Here it is more of your nominal authority. There in your USA, it is a real authority. Here your the power of your Indian president and US president cannot be considered as similar lines. Rather, let's say your Indian prime minister and USA president, you can put it on the same list, just if you have to compare as a body. So look at this. The electoral college in your USA consists of 538 electors, whereas your members of electoral college in India for your Indian presidential system consists of elected members of both the houses of parliament, elected members of legislative assemblies. Okay, that is strictly elected members only. All right. Now, one more thing with respect to your USA and India ka president ka election is the term. US president, it is 4 years. Indian president, generally, it is 5 years. The term for US president is only 2 terms. The term, there is no limit for your Indian president. Understanding? And look at this. Another thing is the presidential candidate chooses a running mate or a vice president candidate. Okay, but in India we do not have something like, now again, vice president of USA is separate compared to the vice president of India. Let's say a president of India is there, he chooses a vice president. Now presently it is your Donald Trump and your JD Vance. 2 years pay, the term of your Donald Trump ends, something happens. Then the remaining 2 years is completed by your JD Vance. But in India, if you see, the president of India ka position becomes vacant means the vice president will not continue the remaining term. He will continue only up until the next president is elected. By max, the election of president has to be completed within 6 months. So he can only act as a president for by max 6 months only. Understanding? So these are some of the differences between your US president and your Indian president. And one main thing, if we have to see with respect to your way of election, Here it is winner takes all approach, whereas with respect to India, it is proportional representation with single transferable vote. We come to the next topic, that is your municipal corporations in India. First and foremost, when India was set up, it had only center and state. But constant things, if we see even our Gandhian ideology, it more spoke about decentralization or giving power to the local bodies. In the 73rd and 74th Amendment, we brought in panchayats and municipalities, wherein this was a way of decentralization or giving power to your local bodies. Through that, your municipal or your municipal body's municipality came into picture. Recently, RBI published a report, own sources of revenue generation in municipal corporation, opportunities and challenges. According to which, yes, decentralization is a very good thing. You have to strengthen its resources. We bought in, let's say, from the state list, we divided and we devolved into your panchayat and municipalities. We have sharing of funds. All of this thing was done in a good spirit. But if you see, if it hasn't evolved much from 1992 to 2025, it hasn't evolved much. It is still stuck with the same portfolios. It is still stuck with the. It has to wait on the grants from your center states. It has to wait for your state election commission, whose processes are not very much strengthened for the needs of your municipalities. And if you see the borrowings of your municipality, initially it was somewhere around 2000 crores. By 2024-25, it has increased to 14,000 crores. So the borrowings have increased, but they've not been effectively able to institutionalize the funds. For example, it's municipal bonds or green bonds haven't been, they haven't able to bring in exceptional changes. It is still stuck in the stagnation stages, and they're not able to own the resources or liquidify it. At the same point of time, they are heavily dependent on your state and central government for funds. Your cities, if you see, yes, they contribute only 3% of land area, but 60% of the country's GDP. That is your municipalities. But if you see, the effectiveness of it is still not yet to be fully assured. The 74th Constitutional Amendment brought in with concepts of urban planning, land use regulation, construction. But again, in here, the effectiveness of these are very much questioned. Look at this Article 243X and 243Y, important from your prelims perspective. Grants state governments the authority to authorize urban local bodies to impose taxes, duties, fees, and to assign certain revenue resources to your urban local bodies. Again, how center and state fight that the center is not devolving much funds to state. With respect to state and your local bodies, also same fight. Your state is not devolving much funds to your ULBs. Uh, Article 243Y assigns the responsibility of reviewing and recommending the devolution of taxes and grants to state finance commissions. They are dependent on the finances and they are not yet able to gain control of their own resources or pool their own resources. What are the key findings of the report? There are extremely low revenue generation. There is heavy reliance on transfers from your central government and state government. Municipal borrowings have increased very much. Municipal bonds are not yet yielding results, same as your green bond market, which is yet to inceptionalize or conceptualize. The next topic that we will be looking into your NGOs or non-governmental organizations. Your Ministry of Home Affairs has announced that your NGOs, if at all they have any changes to their key office bearers and members, they have to be informed, especially if they are under your FCRA, and even if their registration is pending under FCRA also, they have to mention it. One of the common things, if you see with respect to your NGOs recently, is in news many NGOs lost their licenses because of faulty auditing, mismanagement of funds, and not adhering to the standards. Okay, not following the rules. A lot of issues have been brought up in this issue. If you see how they are registered, your societies are registered under Societies Registration Act of 1860. Your trusts are registered under Indian Trust Act of 1882, and your charitable companies are registered under your FCRA license of which are mentioned by your Ministry of Home Affairs. Okay, these things you have to keep in mind. Now your trusts, NGOs, all of this comes under your concurrent list. And Article 19(1) of C, prelims perspective, strictly prelims perspective, speaks on rights to form association and unions. That includes your NGOs also. some of the things that is specifically from prelims perspective, we are discussing things with regarding to your NGO and your current affair news. A committee, usually prelims asks committee, Vijay Kumar committee speaks on recommendation of how to improve your NGOs. First thing is in decentralization. Another thing they speak about is trying to bring in minimal amount of government, maximum governance, even in those kind of aspects. Okay, now we have something called as NGO Darpan, where a unique ID is given to your NGOs which are registered. Okay, and any foreign funds, etc., all of those should be registered. The next topic that we will be seeing is with regard to your governance and AI. India's first AI data bank has been set up with need of your trying to come and compensate for your national security. They use drone, IoT. Basically, AI is used for your education, employment, upskilling, reskilling. Now we have this constant essay question also very coming. AI, is it a better way for your upskilling, reskilling, and gaining better access to the market or unemployment? Now how we are trying to use the AI in our country, same thing happened with globalization, where we have to either go through shock therapy or we have to introduce it in a manner that, see, it is an inevitable thing whether you want it or not, but how you adopt it either through shock therapy or through gradual introduction is up to you. Now, again, because we're speaking of this AI in prelims perspective, let's just see in your prelims stages, questions, facts, datas. Bashini platform, it uses your AI to bring in government services in regional languages. Another thing is your India Urban Data Exchange. It's more about your waste disposal, traffic management, SUAS, Supreme Court Vidik Anuvad software. Okay, this bridges the language gaps. Okay, in your legal proceedings. Another thing is e-Rahat, rapid action for humanitarian assistance. This is more to predict your natural disaster on your real time data. National strategy for AI, that is Niti Ayog's AI for all strategies. So that is to bring in AI for your health, education, agriculture, understanding. India AI program, okay, where MeitY has bought in to promote your AI in the field of innovation, skill development, ethical practices. Okay, so these are all the things which you have to know about AI from your prelims perspective. We have reached the end of the content. If you like our content, subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it along with your friends. Thank you.